writer, poet, wannabe philosopher, pastor, creator of interactive blank canvas social art, and a general instigator looking for people to join him in a revolution. He is the pastor of The Gathering in Salem, Massachusetts, and is working with a team of friends to plant spiritual communities in festivals in the US and the UK. The festivals include places like Haunted Happenings in Salem, Burning Man, and Rainbow Gatherings. The recently published Burning Religion highlights his concept of wild theology, which envisions God, creation, and humanity as wilder than most radical theologies have imagined. He counts his excommunication from a Pentecostal denomination for befriending the witches of Salem and the retelling of the story on the front page of the Wall Street Journal as one of his greatest accidental accomplishments of life. So please give a hand of applause to our panelist, Phil.
Okay. So I need to pass these out. You'll need these at the end. What's that?
What about all this?
Oh, well, yeah, you can use it the entire time if you like. It says something about you if you do. And I'm going to make you the doorkeeper. So if anybody comes in and needs one of these, you're in charge of that. Okay. Now what we need to do is start with a little sing-along. Is that okay?
Yes.
This was too much stuff on my head, including hair, to get this over me. So, get your clown nose before still in tune despite just having well, relatively. Close enough for wild theology. So it goes like this. Here's the words you need to know. Uh-oh, ba-da-da-da-da-da. Sing that with me. Uh-oh, ba-da-da-da-da-da. Again. Uh-oh, ba-da-da-da-da-da. There's another part that goes with it. Uh-oh, ba-da-da-da-da-da. Wee-oo, uh-oh, ba-da-da-da-da-da. Can you hit that note? Wee-oo, uh-oh, ba-da-da-da-da-da. Wee-oo, uh-oh, ba-da-da-da-da-da. This is the last time, and then the other one comes in. Wee-oo, we were gonna ride that path. We were gonna right the wrongs. We were gonna write the songs, and everyone would sing along. But the path grew crooked and the singers few, and the harmonies were feeling wrong. Here we go. Uh-oh, ba-da-da-da-da-da. And everyone was feeling wrong. Uh-oh, ba-da-da-da-da-da. And nobody could get along. Uh-oh, ba-da-da-da-da-da. We were gonna see this out. We were gonna seek the ground. We were gonna seek the found. Turn the whole thing upside down. But our friends were our enemies and enemies were friends. We couldn't find a common ground. Here we go. Uh-oh, ba-da-da-da-da-da. And everything was falling down. Oh, ba-da-da-da-da-da. And everyone wore a frown. Oh, ba-da-da-da-da. Some of us were here, some of us were gone. The smoke finally cleared away. And some of us are still sick, and through the ashes of the world in disarray. Disarray. You know how it goes now. Uh-oh, ba-da-da-da-da. Uh-oh, ba-da-da-da-da. That's it. burning religion, what I want to start with the idea of, since this is about navigating an impossible space, and I came up with this idea of something between religion and secular society, but it's between all very disparate things. They're impossible spaces. And right now in Western civilization, we are questioning our faith, aren't we? And it's happening across the board. Well, when we question our faith, we can anticipate that our faith is also going to become questionable. If we don't know where it stands, how's anybody else going to know? And we have a tendency to say that our faith should be private. How can somebody challenge me about our faith? But our faith impacts how we behave in the world. It impacts social justice. It impacts concepts like evangelism. And so we ought to be challenged. We ought to be questioned about it. But we're questioning morality, theology, the liturgies and traditions of places that we came from, and people don't quite know where we stand. Consequently, we're getting frustrated with this, and we're burning bridges. This is South Wales.
Should we do the lights?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is South Wales, and that is called the tolled booth. Tolled booth had two ramps going up the side of it. You'd walk in, and Sharpies were hanging around inside, and it asked you the question, what have you been told that has taken a toll on your life? People wrote all over it. And this is the cathartic ending to that moment. You'll see guys in dresses, and that's another story that comes from me encouraging weird things. Now, the things that were written have to do with this great distance between religion and people. They wrote, and between society, between families and people, it's a distance, a gap, a bridge that we can't make it across. And there's a story in Scripture that perhaps describes this distance best. And we know that story is the story of Lazarus and the rich man. Jesus tells this parable. Lazarus sores all over his body, a poor man laying at the gate. The rich man walks by mercilessly every day. Lazarus dies, goes to a place called Abraham's bosom for comfort. The rich man dies, goes to a place of torment, and he looks up, and he sees Lazarus in Abraham's bosom, and he says, send Lazarus to me, just a drop of water on his finger, cool my tongue from this torment. And Abraham says, well, there's a great gap that's fixed between us. You can't come this way, but we can't go that way either. So he says, well, at least send Lazarus to my brothers to warn them of this. And Abraham says, well, they have Moses and the prophets to warn them. No, but if someone would raise from the dead, they would believe. And in that statement, what we discover, in Abraham saying, if they don't hear Moses and the prophets, they won't hear even if somebody raises from the dead. What we're learning is that the gap that was fixed between them already existed in the heart of the rich man before he died. And it also existed in his brothers. That gap was already there. Now the thing that we desire in seeking to make God flesh for people, to bring God down to earth, is to go across this gap. But so much of our society, yeah, there I am, my hair all over the place. You'll see a little black coat that's behind that got burned out. That was mine too. But so much of our society is losing the bridge back to the faith of our fathers. And most of us have done that. And in having done that, we sometimes are celebrating the moment it falls. And you'll see this happen here in a moment. Just like the temple at Burning Man, people sit around silently watching the temple burn, crying. It's a very emotional moment. But there comes a moment in the burning of that temple when it falls, and the crowd cheers, and there's this simultaneous movement of mourning and celebration. And when we lose something of the past, even if we celebrate some kind of liberation, there's a cognitive dissonance inside of us that's rumbling around, and we mourn even at the moment that we celebrate. And so you'll see that some of these people have been jumping up and down because they were glad to see the things that were said being burned. Others are just watching, waiting for this moment when this thing's going to fall. And it turns from a hug fest and guys in dresses to a shout. Now, I didn't put here what he actually said. But here he's talking about burn, baby. Burn those words up. This happens at these Burning Man kind of events. The project is burned, and there's a cathartic moment.
Feels good.
And there's a statement. So these are the kind of things that were written inside of it. It feels good to see this go. But in the same moment, people walked in all week long writing these. Some people would come back repeatedly, write things over and over. Now, this expresses to us something of that great gap between where I once stood and where I am now. And our celebration in the moment, simultaneous to the mourning that comes, expresses to us something about Zeno's paradox. If you're familiar, point A to point B, you go halfway. There's so many halfway points. If you keep going halfway, you never make it. When do we recognize that most? It doesn't make sense from this point A to this point B, but it makes sense when we go to a family gathering. And at that family gathering, we have taboos, things that we cannot talk about. And the closer we get, the farther away it seems. What we're discovering is the faith of our fathers. That's my cue if you're wondering what the bang is. The faith of our fathers is being destroyed in front of us. And we celebrate and we mourn. And simultaneously, we become like this. An isolated individual and a lone point in the universe. Existentially isolated, and nobody understands where I live. And I don't understand where anybody else lives. But I think this is the place. This place of exile is actually the place of hope. These are pictures from Burning Man from 2 years ago. We will find love. We will find hope. We will find liberation in the midst of our exile. Here in these festivals, we're finding people who learn things. For 1 week of the year, the world I dream of actually exists. Every year, I learn how to love and accept, love more and more. No more walls. Statements from people at Burning Man. Create, don't consume, and you will be happy. Having the pirate in this was absolutely perfect. And this next one, I found how broken I am. It didn't fix the cracks, but at least I know where they are. Isn't that something that we anticipate would happen in church? But it's happening now in wild, carnivalesque, transformative festivals. And people have left the place where they once felt perhaps they might have learned that. So, this is the summer solstice, Stonehenge. I sat on a stone with a box of cigars and a bottle of whiskey on a Stonehenge stone. And people said, "What are you doing?" "I'm doing cigars, whiskey, and philosophy." And that's what I did all night. Dennis sat with a sign that said, "Free dream interpretation," and sat and interpreted dreams all night long at a transformative festival. This is Salem, Haunted Happenings. About 1 million people come up every October. And this is the world's largest eye contact experiment. They look at each other for 1 minute. It was really transforming for people. And at the end, they would write a simple thing on the wall saying, "I participated in this." This is Ty. Ty will say something that you'll say to yourself, should we really do that? But you need to listen to these words. This is absolutely amazing.
Maybe we should give away raffle tickets to clergy and have a camp so that they could have intensive immersion into the 10 principles. You know, and walk around naked for a day, not ministering to people and speaking in single declarative sentences to everyone. They should walk around naked and have people do nice things to them, but they can't talk. That would be so excellent. That would be so excellent because then they would kind of like get a whole group of layers that would be useful to them, because there's things happening out here that don't happen very much in town, in civilization, in the rest of the world, and they're the things that they're trying to get everybody to snap to. It just happens more often out here. Maybe that's it. Maybe we should make an outreach center to clergy. Would that be good?
Now, going naked to Burning Man isn't necessarily the theme behind that. It's the deeper things that he had to say. Show up here and don't make your declarative sentences, and experience a world of giving. So I want to introduce you quickly to 3 people. They're going to pop up on the screen. And these are people who lay behind the thinking of a carnivalesque revolution. Carnival that transforms the people around us. This first individual is Emmanuel Levinas. And Emmanuel Levinas is a Lithuanian-born Jew who was a French philosopher. He fought in World War II. He ended up in a concentration camp. He was a follower of the writings of Martin Heidegger, who became a Nazi. And then the rest of his life, he talked about the other. And the other was that something radically different than us. And true ethics, true authenticity was how we treated the other. Interestingly, God was a big other. And it was as though God had hollow eyes and looked out the fence of the concentration camp at us and cried out for us to engage. This next individual is one of the leaders of, well, I'd like to put it best as this guy destroyed Orientalism. This is Edward Said. And what I love about this guy, Palestinian, 12 years old, when Israel became a nation and his family got kicked out. And then, in his work, he maybe single-handedly took the category of Orientalism, which was studying anything from North Africa all the way to Japan, and lumped it into one big thing, and showed how it was a means of oppression of the West, particularly over the Middle East. So we learned, and he coined a phrase called othering, where you look at the other person, and in engaging them in your othering, what you're doing is actually finding a means of oppression. But my favorite philosopher in all the world is a third exile. His name is Mikhail Bakhtin. Mikhail Bakhtin, and I can only really say one thing other than, 20 years in prison, in exile under Stalin. And Mikhail Bakhtin came up with this beautiful theory of why you have this red thing in front of you. It's carnival, carnivalesque, carnival as a revolution. It's that carnival as a revolution that has for us, I believe, one of the most transformative things for crossing the bridge that has been burned back again. And we find in these 3 philosophers these absolutely amazing things that, one, we're being told that in the other, I find myself. In the other, I discover who I really am, and there is authenticity. If I can treat them kindly and well, I have learned about myself. And then we learn from Edward Said that there are systems of oppression, and there's a hegemony that's created by means of the way I think. And it doesn't matter if I'm part of a big system or a little system. I can quite frankly move to those systems of oppression and think wrongly about the other person very quickly. So what we're going to do is a very simple first lesson that comes from, you don't want to put your nose on yet, a very simple first lesson that comes from the concept of carnival as revolution. One thing I want you to do before we put it on, and this is very easy to come up with, in this current season of politics, think of a single sentence, a single declarative sentence, that expresses how frustrated you are with the current political system. Does anybody have one of those? What makes you frustrated about the presidential race right now in politics? Why? What makes you upset? Anybody got that? Okay, now turn to somebody, and everybody needs to do this, and say that sentence out loud to somebody else in the room. Everybody do it. What makes you mad about the political scene? Don't put the nose on.
That's about how I feel.
Okay. Now when you've got it, turn back this way. Now, put the nose on. And this is what you're going to do. You're going to say exactly the same thing that you just said wearing the nose. Okay? It's a serious thing that you're angry about. Wear the nose and say your sentence. Go ahead.
It's actually oddly fitting.
Okay, so we need to close quickly here, and I just want to make these comments. So what you just did is learn something about how other people view you. You cannot possibly say something serious looking across the clown nose and say it in the same way that you do when you don't have the clown nose on. It's nearly an impossible thing. But the person who radically disagrees with you, you think they're a clown. You know what? They think you're a clown. And by putting this on, you have discovered how to put yourself in their shoes in a way to realize how it is that they look at you. And so, when we understand that the whole concept of reaching out to the other is our authenticity, that we need to stop othering people and making them somehow lesser than ourselves, and that carnival begins with understanding that God has chosen the foolish things of this world to confound the wise. He has chosen clowns to build bridges, and that is who we are. Amen.